What's going on out there in the world, all you
Place
people?
and the place to be. This is pre-recorded for those of you. Normally we do our live on Fridays at 6:30. Community Beacon. Definitely want you all to check us out. I'm excited, brother. What's going on?
Hey man, what? Every time I get on this podcast with you, I'm glad about it. This feels good. It feels right, and I'm also happy to be able to contribute whatever it is. I'm enjoying these podcasts, man. I'm loving this thing, and the topic that we have tonight, it's big to me. What is intentional? What is it to be intentional? So I think that's a good thing for us to start off with on this night.
Awesome. Before we start off, I'm looking at the background. The backgrounds have changed on both screens for both of us.
Yeah.
We're starting to step it up a little bit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Being intentional about where we're headed, which is something I definitely want to get into at some point in time. But talk about it. What is intentional? We got that scrolling across the bottom of the screen. I'm trying to figure out when did we decide on talking about this, or how do we come up with it?
I know that the last time we had this conversation, we were sitting down and we were on a little a podcast just like this, but it wasn't a podcast. It was just you and me, brainstorming on what we were going to do on our next project or our next episode, and we were discussing how I would be working at the station on tomorrow, so I wouldn't be available to do that. So that's why we have this pre-recorded. And while we were doing that, we were defining each other's roles, what kind of individuals we are. And that's when we realized, that you're more of like the analyzer, and that's like your tag name, because you analyze things. And I'm more of an empathizer, and that's maybe that's because of the way I was brought up. But in the middle of all of that, you mentioned something. And I wrote it down, and you were like, you know what, brother, but whatever it is, the whole purpose of what we have to do is we have to be intentional. Whatever we're going to do, whatever we're going to be successful at, it's going to come because of us being intentional. Right. And so whether it's analytically, whether we analyze our way through it or whether we empathize our way through it and be able to see the other end, there has to be some form of intentional or intent to do whatever it is to be successful. And I believe that at that point in time, it was like, okay, that's it. That's it. This is where we need to roll with that right there.
Right. And since we've had that conversation, there's been so many instances that have just came up to say, okay, this is how a person would get from point A to point B effectively. The quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. And oftentimes when you're not intentional and you do know you want to get to point B, we start to go in all kinds of different directions because we're not intentional about getting to point B. I mean, I don't know about you, but sometimes, and I want to refer it to like success. It's like we can start thinking about success and then it just be out there. But if we're not intentional about getting to success, it just furthers us getting to that point. If we ever get to that point, because you could essentially just be going around and around in a circle around A and never even getting to point B. So one of the things that just came to mind was I happened to find I found my old phone. I had a phone. What was it, back in February or March or something? And for those of you who don't know, man, over the last year or so, a little bit after COVID, etc., like I gained a lot of weight. And but I wasn't paying attention to it. I wasn't intentional about me actually going out and exercising. I was still going to the gym, but I wasn't intentional about doing, putting anything together. I was kind of going in there and just doing what I felt and thinking that would be enough. I bought my Apple Watch. I watched my, the calories on the Apple Watch, and it's like, okay, well, this.
All right, Apple, give us a phone call. Give us a phone call, Apple. Right there. Mike, the analyzer, said it. He bought an Apple Watch, and watch what happens next.
And I'm gonna tell you what. If we don't get the check, I'm gonna tell you what I really think about it. So I get to watch, and I'm just in there. And it wasn't until I saw I took a video of myself doing some work. So I'm at the gym, and ended up doing some kettlebell swings. And I said, well, you know what? I'm gonna videotape myself doing these swings because I feel in my mind I'm looking pretty good while I'm doing it.
Yes, sir. I like it. I like it.
And so I did the kettlebell swings and I supersetted it with some push-ups. And I should have known then because I couldn't even do regular push-ups. I was kind of doing them on the incline, but I just said I was tired.
Yeah.
And I happened to take a look at that video, and I said, well, who was I videotaping? Because that was it reversed or something? Was the camera reversed? Because that's not me. And I mean, I looked at myself, I said, wow, this is interesting. I don't think I've ever I don't recall myself looking like this.
Right.
And I immediately, maybe that a little later on that weekend, this is like February, March, I went out and I bought a scale. And the scale, I'm picking up the feedback again. We're gonna work through this, people. Maybe I move my microphone back a little bit. I think.
Go ahead, brother.
Okay. Yeah, so I bought a scale, and man, and brother, I had gained 45 pounds.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 45 nice little pounds was packed around. It was, speaking of the saving lives, I would you probably would have just saw the saving, and the lives would have been on the back of the shirt if I had the shirt on. And so what I ended up doing was like I had to get intentional, because I was a heavy set person, years ago. This is maybe 8-10 years ago, before I met Officer not Lou's friend Thurlow, who informed me of how to work out and things to eat. And really at the end of the day, that's really what it was what exactly was I eating? And I don't
nutrition.
And I don't necessarily eat terribly, right? I like you wouldn't notice some things I eat because I'm not at McDonald's every day, that type of thing. But there's a certain way that I need to eat. I need to watch my carbs. I need to be intentional about how many carbs I'm bringing in. I need to be intentional about the type of fats that I'm taking in. I need to be intentional about what my calories is, how many calories I'm ingesting. And the first thing you got to do is you got to start, logging these things in, because, even if you're just eating the, cashews or almonds or whatever it is, how many times are you going back to the kitchen to go get a handful? And go ahead, brother.
Yeah, hold on. Just take a break just for a moment, because like you're going down this road of being intentional, and like just for a moment, explain that part right there, because I found also in my road to being more intentional and to be genuine and to be authentic that I've had to document things much more in order for me to accomplish things. So when you say that you had to take that time to do this, that strikes something inside me, like that means something. So that's what I'm saying. Just for a moment, take a little bit deeper dive into that and explain to us why you did that and how it affected the results.
Well, the famous business, there's a famous businessman, Peter Drucker. He'd go into different companies and he'd make huge changes. Excellent. I mean, one of the most magnificent business minds of our time. He used to say, what gets measured gets improved. So, even from the point of, you from not getting on a scale normally, let's go back to that. Like, I had to go out and buy a scale, whereas opposed to where I was probably getting on a scale at least 1 to 2 times a week regularly. But now I had to go out and buy a scale because I didn't have a scale to get onto. So that was the shocking part in regards to getting attention. And now I can actually see the numbers, because I think what differentiates between the being intentional and just kind of going with the flow is going to be like like you said, what's documented, and we call me the analyzer. So I believe hugely in numbers as opposed to how I'm feeling. And to be honest with you, you kind of feel, if you're not eating right, you don't know you feel bad until you start eating good. So feelings come and go, because there's times when I wasn't really thinking about my feelings when I had to take that 2 to 3 o'clock nap because my body, I was running on terrible fuel. You know what I mean? Like, so you had to take that nap. You just seem tired. You seem drained. And then you don't know where these things are actually coming from, because they're not being documented. So started documenting it on the scale, I guess, would be the initial start of putting it down, and then the taking it to the next level, being intentional about losing weight and understanding what I know about weight loss, calories in versus calories out. You want to be in a caloric deficit. You're going to need to ingest less calories. And I'm going to tell you what, for some people, and here's a quick tip for most people. If you go and you get an app that counts your calories, I think I use MyFitnessPal. A real quick tip, people. You go get MyFitnessPal if you're deciding that you want to lose some weight. And I'm going to tell you, the only thing that you have to do is just log in what you put. Just don't change your eating habits. If you're hungry, go eat. If you feel hungry, go eat what you want to eat. Whatever. Just regularly for 1 week, just log in. Actually, just make a habit of logging in what you're eating so that it'll count your calories. I mean, with the way technology is now, all you got to do is take a picture of the barcode, right? And all this information pops up. So just by virtue of doing that, I can almost guarantee you're going to lose 3 to 5 pounds in the course of maybe 3-4 weeks. Now, we can get more efficient than that, but I'm just saying, just by the fact of you seeing and understanding how much you're actually eating, because we don't know most people don't know what they're actually eating. We just eat when we feel, which it goes down to another thing, that half the time we're thirsty and we're not even hungry. We're just thirsty, but we don't understand the difference between the stimulus of being thirsty and the stimulus of being hungry. And I'm telling you this as a person who went through it, was like, am I thirsty? Am I hungry? Do I need water, or do I actually need the nourishment? And oftentimes it's water over nourishment. But yeah, to answer your question, just by virtue of putting these calories in, it makes you more aware. So being intentional about, okay, what exactly am I doing? So to me, it sounds more like what did you feel like, as opposed to what's actually happening.
Let me jump in on there.
Yeah, go ahead.
On that pause. So, what I'm hearing is that, you weren't even talking about changing the diet or the nutritional factor. You were just talking about just becoming intentional with writing down what you are consuming on paper, through this app. You said it was MyFitnessPal, that just in seeing that, it stimulates the mind and may actually help you to make a change. Is that right?
I'm going to tell you that I'm like I said, I'm almost going to guarantee.
I like it. I'm
going to guarantee that if you're, most people, what is it? 73% of people in America are obese. I think the number is actually higher than that. But just by virtue of putting what you write into the, by taking a picture or putting this information into the app, you are going to eat less. It's just what your body's going to do. The problem is, and I'm just reiterating the point. The issue that we have is that we often go on how we feel, and feelings are deceiving. I deceived you, fleeting. I deceived myself to saying I wasn't 245. No matter, or I had gotten that big. No matter if I had to change, I had to buy new jeans. If I had I had to buy a new belt, and I still didn't tell myself like this was getting out of hand. I said, "Oh yeah, I'm probably about 220." You know what I mean? In my mind, I'm saying 220. And I bought a new belt. Now, you don't have to buy a new belt if you fluctuate. For most people, if you fluctuate 10 pounds, most people's belts will suffice. We tend to buy our belts a little bit bigger anyways. So you fluctuate 5 to 10 pounds, your belt is going to suffice. You might go to a new hole, right? You might not be in that same worn out hole. But when you have to make an emergency trip to distorted because you got a meeting and you need a belt. That should have told me right then and there. However, I wasn't intentional about it. It just didn't make a difference to me until I personally had to see the numbers. That's why I'm the analyzer for that's another reason why I'm the analyzer. I have to see the numbers. But go ahead, brother.
So I'm right there with you. So, and just for the people out there, just a reminder, what gets measured gets improved. That was by Peter Drucker that Mike was talking about. And it's a good quote. You ought to remember it. I want to offer another quote though, while we're on this point, and I want to transverse into other subjects and categories. So not just as far as nutrition, because what we're talking about being intentional, we want you also to understand that it's not just in the nutrition. The thing about it is that if you take what you learn out of his nutritional excerpt, if you will, or that point of view there, then you move it to another part of your life, then you can build something else. So we all have strengths and weaknesses. And most of the time we cater towards our strengths. And as long as we're catering towards our strengths, then just like Mike was just saying, you always feel good. Oh man, I feel good, because I can bench press XYZ. But meanwhile, the belt loop has gone from one hole to the next hole to a whole new belt. Right. And so when we're dealing with other things in life, the same things are happening. We should be recognizing, but many times we don't recognize because we only rely on our strengths. So we don't realize that, in the weaker area, we have moved from one belt loophole to the next belt loophole to the next belt loophole to the next thing you know, we got to buy a new belt for something totally different inside of our life. So there's a scripture reading. It's Habakkuk 2:2. Habakkuk 2:2. All right. Now Habakkuk 2:2 said Habakkuk, he was a prophet, a minor prophet of the Lord, Old Testament type of guy, and he was sitting there having this conversation with God. And then all of a sudden it came to him, and he wrote it as, and the Lord answered me and said, listen to this. This is what the Lord said to Habakkuk. He said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables. Tables in the old school days is like writing on paper, or in nowadays, it's like recording in my Fitness Pal. All right, journal this so you have it later. So write the vision and make it plain. So anybody should be able to read this, right? I should be able to read my own notes. Write the vision, make it plain upon tables so that he that readeth may run. So whoever reads whatever this is should be able to work whatever they need to work. This is intentionalism. This is the idea of being intentional. You write it down so that when you see it, you can apply effort to it. This is what we're talking about, y'all. It's a mindset shift. And I love the way that you said that, Mike, because the first thing you said is, listen, I'm not even concerned about, whether you're able to knock off 1 pound or 2 pounds or 3 pounds or 10 pounds. If you simply just start logging what it is that you are doing, then if your intent is to eventually lose weight, you will then visualize you are doing everything wrong and make an adjustment. When we become intentional, we give ourselves an opportunity to make an adjustment. So this is number one right here. We want you all of you all to understand it. Number one lesson in being intentional is you have to first come up with the plan, write it down. Write your plan down. Write your intent down. Even if you can't come up with a full plan from A to Z, write your intent down. Write your goal down. Write your mindset down. Wherever you want to be in your life, write it down and then review it every single day. And eventually it will manifest inside your life that you need to make some adjustments. This is being intentional.
Let me, because we got to understand how powerful it is, what you just said, and then add to it in the fact of, like, when you said to write it down and make it plain.
Make it
plain. Make it plain. And then guess what else happens when you write it down and you make it plain? Now other people
Yes.
Other people can see it and support with you with whatever you have going on. Other people can see, you know, we're talking about fitness, but now we can go on to business. You can go on to your life, whatever it is. Other people can see, like, okay, this is the change that this person is making. You know, you might have your wife or your husband in the house with you. Maybe I don't need to go and stop him and get this bowl of ice cream before I come home from work. Because this person, because it's made plain. Now you can seek support. Let me tell you. And one of these things I heard, and there was a personal trainer, and I think he's excellent for doing this. But that was one of the things he said. He used to make his clients write down, and you know, of course, I'm using my fitness pal. I tend to be a little bit more disciplined than most, but most trainers, or not this trainer in particular, would say, send me everything that you eat. Don't hide anything from me. And if we're gonna have this relationship and you want to get better, that's why you came to me. Send me everything that you eat. Write it down and make it plain, not for judgment, but to see where we can make the adjustments. You know, I think most people are gonna make the adjustment. And here's this one trainer said that he told someone to do that. He said, but you know, people still are gonna do what they're gonna do, and they feel shameful. He had to actually tell them, you need to eat more because they make a person's automatically gonna make that judgment. Well, I'm not gonna eat this candy bar because I got to send this over to the coach. I'm not gonna eat this pop or whatever it is that they're eating. And so now you're on your best behavior because now you're being held accountable for something that you have to write down and make plain. You're making yourself accountable to yourself, and you're making yourself accountable to anyone who's there to support you. You know, now Joe can come to me and say, well, brother, this is what you wrote down. You know, how's that going? And then, you know, of course, when you get some really good people in your life, I'm not going to talk about the people who want to sabotage your plans, but we can go on. But I just wanted to add to your point because that's a powerful scripture and truth that Habakkuk. I used to say, I thought it was Habakkuk.
Right, Habakkuk.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you this question, you know, for us to discuss, because I think that was, you know, I think that what you brought out was right on the money, you know, and people need to take that. Number one thing is write your intent down.
Write it down.
Number one thing, write your intent down. So I'm hoping everyone gets that. So the thing that I want to ask now is, what keeps people from writing their intent down, from being intentional about the change that they're looking for? That's if we can, I would like to see if we can move the discussion into what bars somebody from being intentional in the things that they desire to change, you know.
I think people are so to answer your question, and I hope you shine some light on it as well. It's like, I think people, it's a fear. You know what I mean? Like it's fear of how, like, most people, you know, once you don't go on that scale for the first 2-3 months, now you're like, so you telling me I got to go on this thing again? You know what I mean? It's with credit too. People don't look at their credit.
Yeah,
they just man, that thing might be terrible. You know, credit only goes from, I think it's like from 400 to 850 or something. Like, yeah, you're going to get a number. People are scared of that number. Same reason why, when, you know, if you don't know how to manage money, you don't look at your bank account. You don't look at your bank account when you don't know how to. Most people don't know how to manage money. They don't look at their accounts. They're scared to see what's in there. Oh man, I know I was spending. I know I bought something last month or a couple weeks ago. You don't look at it until you're like, am I going to have enough to pay for whatever it is I got to pay for? You know what I mean? So these money just going in and out. So I think initially that's it. It's the fear of how bad has it gotten, you know, and then you know, for some people it's like, you know, are you going to be finished with it? Like if you see the scale and the scale says that you're 50 pounds up, let's just put that in perspective. Is it gonna move you to do something? Or are you gonna just say, okay, well, I'm 50 pounds up, and okay, it is what it is, and you continue going down that path? Because now you got to take accountability and responsibility, because you didn't just get that way. I mean, you didn't get that way to 50 pounds in the first place. But now that now you have to be accountable for what's your next move going to be, because all these things can be fixed, right? Like you can fix we can work on your weight. We can figure out a way to work on your weight, barring some kind of physical situation. But either then we can go to nutrition, but thyroids, etc. Like barring some kind of medical thing that might preclude you from being able to work out properly. But even then, you got to figure it out, right? Because you're going down the path of that. And just like your credit, okay, well, how you gonna fix that? What steps do you need to do? And it's crazy to me that people who have credit that's not the best credit, just by the fact of them starting to pay attention to it. You know what I mean? Within a year's time, oh man, my credit shot up 200 points.
That's going back to write your intent down. You mentioned credit, and you mentioned bank statements. Listen, y'all out there, some things you don't have to write down. You just got to review it. It's been written down by someone else. And Mike brought out that point when we were talking about Habakkuk, where he was saying that so that other people can help you. Well, your bank is helping you by by logging every single thing that you purchase. Look at it. You want to know why you ain't got any money? Look at your bank statement. It will tell you why you don't have any money. You got to intentionally look at it. So when we say write the intent down, you got to remember, depending on what it is, there are other circumstances. You got bad credit. Look at your credit. Pull your credit once a year. That's a given.
You're allowed, and it's free. And it's free. Yeah. But free. So now, so for me, it's black and white, right? Yeah. I see. I'll get on a consulting call with certain clients, and they say, "Well, Mike, what is it that I have to do?" And it's black and white. It's bam, 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 bam. Well, me doing this for so long, and this is what you're going to speak. I'm sure you can speak to it, is because you're going to tell the real why. As to why it's not, because for me it's black and white. Like it's like, do you want this house, or do you want this lifestyle? Do you want this income? This is what you need to do. You need to look at your credit. Do you want this body? This body that you're thinking about, you want to be 12% body fat, 16%, whatever it is. Boom, 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 boom. You're gonna tell me, you are really gonna explain, I'm sure, of why they're not, why a person wouldn't necessarily be intentional, or why they're avoiding these things, or even to the point of writing it down. Like, why are they not going on the scale? Why,
I mean, I feel as if, I don't know if we're losing connectivity, but
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I feel like you opened up the door, man. Mike, you opened up the door. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth when you said fear. 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 That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with fear. People have fear that they will not succeed. They have fear that they are a failure. They have fear that they are inadequate. They have fear that, but the thing is that we are greater than our fears. We're greater than our fears, Yeah. So I want to put this out there for the people out there too. It's a poem that I love. I love this poem, right? It's a poem by Marianne Williamson. And some of you all probably have heard it. I'm going to read it. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God, your playing small doesn't serve the world. So I want to put that out into the atmosphere. Now, you may not agree with all of the sentiments and everything, but that right there has impacted me ever since I first heard it. And I actually heard it on a movie. I think it was Samuel L. Jackson had asked this young man who was he was coaching him. I think he was playing basketball, if my mind serves me right. And he just wouldn't show up. He wouldn't give 100%. You know, just like some people right now will not give 100% in what they do, or like Mike would say, 1,000%. In other words, he's saying, I'm all in. I'm all in. I'm all in. If you're going to be intentional, you must be all in. So what are you doing? If you don't think you're good enough, if you don't think you're fabulous enough, gorgeous enough, beautiful enough, talented enough, smart enough, then what are you doing and sizing yourself down? What does that benefit? How will you ever get right? Nothing. How will you ever get anywhere in life if you just don't even believe in yourself? Your fear is inside of you. So what you need to do is find your fear and eliminate it. It's time to go on a search. So if you have an issue with writing down your intent, or you find that you've written down your intent, but you can never become intentional, it's because there is something that is still inside of you, not inside of the world. It is not your wife. It ain't your children. It's not your job. It's not your circumstances. I mean, look at what's that? Damon, the creator of
Damon John.
Damon Johns, him and his group. Damon Johns he's on Shark Tank. This guy is walking around with black button-up shirts, and he's got himself on a $1,000, $2,000, $10,000 suit, you know, and he's doing his thing behind his cell phone, click, 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 and he's got his thing going on. Do you think that the neighborhood that he grew up in supplied him with that mindset to get up and to move out? This man made something out of himself, and he was not satisfied with the environment that he was around, and he would not allow the environment to dictate his destiny. So don't allow for your environment to dictate your destiny. You must take a hold of your own destiny. So write your intention down, and when you find your fears, eliminate it. It's kind of like me. I'm a fireman. I don't like heights, y'all.
Thank God we live in Florida.
Man, let me tell you, bro. I was in the school, and they took us and they got the fire truck out. They didn't even have one. They had to call the county up to bring the fire truck to us. And they jacked that ladder up. And I watched it. And then next thing you know, it started to stink. I said, goodness, what are they doing here? And I had to climb this ladder up, and there was nobody but me. And I had to go up 100 feet into the air. Not only that, but then I went through confined space, and they put me through a hole 32 feet wide. Looked like something that alligators used to nest in. And I had to travel 500 feet. So if my intent wasn't to be the best fireman that I could be, then I would have failed due to fear. Overcome your fear. God did not give us the spirit of fear, but of power, right? Love and a sound mind. So we need to utilize those things. Yeah, that's number 2. You got it, Mike.
I pulled up.
In spite of fear, I love it.
I was thinking about Damon John. One thing about Damon John was, in spite of his fear, and you mentioned him in Shark Tank. Let me tell you something. I would advise anyone, when I was really into watching TV, Shark Tank was one of my favorite shows. And if you go back to the beginning of Shark Tank and paid attention to Damon John, and even some of the other sharks, to be honest with you, they didn't know what they were doing. Like Damon John, I saw Damon John learning he was already a businessman. I don't want to take any of that away from him, but he was specifically a businessman in what his what it was. His business was logistic, was clothing, logistics, fashion, etc. He knew that business. But if you go back and watch what Shark Tank does, is Shark Tank brings all these other types of businesses into onto the show, and then now you're an investor in these businesses, and you could see him watching, because one thing about business, just like real estate, is that we have a regular standard contract. It's called the FAR bar contract, but there's so many things you can do outside of it. Now, most people don't even understand that, and this is called creative real estate, because real estate is not really about the money. Real estate is about people and how they feel about a property. So when people say things are overpriced, underpriced, things are not overpriced or underpriced. Things are what they are. Because I'm gonna tell you what, if you had a mansion and somebody was gonna give you that mansion, and I'm talking about one of the nicest homes you've ever seen, or you could imagine your dream home. You know what I mean? Like let's say you're on the island of Palm Beach and you're backed up against the water, right? Someone said, "Hey, I'll give you this property. You just got to pay me $500 a month for the rest of your life." Most people are gonna take that deal. You know what I mean? Because most people are gonna because they see the value in it. It has nothing to do with the price. I could tell you, this, how much is this house? Oh, this house is $30 million, but give me $500 a month for the rest of your life. You're gonna say you don't know how long you're gonna live. I think my brother once told me he wants to live. My brother Joe said he want to live. What is it? 120? Is that the age?
131. That's my goal. Okay. I will be there. Y'all will see me.
Right.
Those that are alive.
131, and so you could essentially end up living 131 years, 150 years. Like, we don't know, right? When God feels like it's time for you to come home, He's gonna call you home. So you could essentially pay this $500 for the rest of life. People, it does not matter to people. It's the value that's provided. This is a house, the way that the house looks. So it's our value. And so same thing in business that Damon, I said all that Damon John was learning this in real time. He could have turned down Shark Tank and was saying, I'm not going to go on that show with Mark Cuban, who's been doing, investing in businesses for X amount of time, or all these other different people. He said, listen, I'm gonna go on here in spite of not necessarily knowing, and this is me watching them, because I learned a lot from Shark Tank and how they broke things down. I was gonna say another thing about what I think deters people is the length of time they think it may take them in order to, because you mentioned something in regards to executing, and in spite of it, I think some people are deterred about how long it's gonna take. We live in, we tend to, and I don't know whether it's this generation or if it was before, because I feel like I think probably through history, people are impatient, right? I think because patience is a virtue, and it's something that you have to work on. Like, I think we could have went back to, you would think that those people were more in a rush because they were living till they were 50. You know what I mean? And then the 1800s, 1700s, 1600s, these people were living until, like, if you lived until you were 60, you was an old man. So you would think if you lived until you were 35, 40, or 40, 50 years old, you'd be more in a rush to get to where you were going, because you got less time in your mind, you got less time to do it with. But someone may look at their credit and say, okay, I'm at a 400. Let's say you want to buy a house, you want to get to about a 620 to buy a house or something. Well, how long is it going to take me to fix my credit? Or if you're working out, one of the things is to be effective, and healthy, you lose 1 to 2 pounds a week. Well, if you're 45 pounds overweight, like myself, you can start to say, well, how many weeks is that? What's that's 20? What is that? 20 something weeks? Or that 12 is 24? Yeah, that's like 24 weeks. And then in your mind, like, 24 weeks, I got to do this for 24 weeks. I have to, and so that in itself can deter you, because that's the first challenge, the obstacle. Time could be an obstacle, when really first off, you're going to be going through this time anyways. That's really how you need to think of it. If you're going to be here, you're going to be here. So you might as well establish these healthy habits. And it was interesting. I thought about it. Leo Tolstoy, the writer, the author, he said the two most powerful warriors are patience and time. It's patience and time. So I would say the impatience of a person makes them not necessarily want to even, let alone they'll write it down. But now when we're executing out of fear, it's like, well, what if I go through this and, it doesn't work out for me, or if I'm not efficiently? Because even though it's 1 to 2 pounds, you might have some weeks where you fall off. Life happens. Things happen when you can't. Yeah, things can't happen, and so there's setbacks. There's because I think rarely things go off without a hitch. You know what I mean? If something is going on without a hitch, you really want to check to see what exactly is happening, because it might be something else. So I don't know. What do you think about that in regards to the people not wanting to execute because of how long it will take?
I like that. And I like that. We're taking a little bit of a deeper dive into this whole this part of fear, because that's still a part of fear,
right?
Whether it's time or whatever it is, it's something, whatever blocks you from being intentional, from reaching your goal. There's some type of fear, I believe, that is connected to that. So now I've got a saying. I call it rock movers. Those of y'all out there in the LinkedIn world, you saw my excerpt that I put out there on rock movers. I call it rock movers wanted. Rock movers wanted. So just imagine it like this. You're a farmer, agriculture world, right? Maybe it was passed down to you, a field, or maybe you inherited it, or maybe somebody said, hey, listen, I know you were in a bad situation. Here's a field. Or maybe this is just what you have. This is all you have. Poor man, one field. You have to make your living off of this field. You have so many days to make that living. You go out to the field, and when you get out to the field, it's filled with rocks. Rocks everywhere. You're like, how am I supposed to make it? They got to be out of their mind. There's rocks everywhere, stones, boulders, whatever. It's everywhere. How am I ever going to put seeds in here and reap a harvest? It's easy, y'all. It's not that it's an easy thing, but it's that you take one rock at a time and move it out of the way. I know it. Yeah, we look up and we see the field. The field is filled with rocks. We don't move all the rocks at one time. You get one rock, you move it. You get another rock, you move it. And you don't even look up. Just keep working. Stay focused. Stay focused. One rock at a time. Just like if you're trying to lose that weight, stay focused. One meal at a time. One meal. If you just like that person that had a field full of rocks, if one day they get up and they don't move rocks, you know what they can do on the next day? Move rocks.
Move rocks.
They can move them again. They're not going to lose what they've gained if they just get back and start moving the rocks again. If you gained another pound and you go back and you just start watching your meal, one meal at a time, you will pick up where you left off at. So the excerpt is called Rock Movers Wanted. And that's what it's all about. Pick up the rock, move it. I had a consultation with somebody that I was looking at being an investor, and I ended up leaving him with this, because he came back to me days later and he had something going on. I said, listen, I told him the exact same thing, only I gave probably a little more detail. Don't you know that this man started, calling me up, and every time I saw him, he's like, oh, you know what, Joel, man, I'm just moving one rock at a time. Next thing you know, I see him, he's studying something, moving one rock at a time. He's getting ready to take a test, moving one rock at a time. He's contacting somebody because he's about to make a deal, moving one rock at a time. He is setting himself up to do that thing that he desires to do. But instead of looking at it, oh my gosh, I got so much to do, that becomes very heavy. It becomes very heavy. Just do it one thing at a time and stay focused. You will reach your goal at the end of your time period, however long it is. And the better you get at moving those rocks, the faster you'll get to your goal, because you won't even know it. Before you know it, you've been past your goal. overcame your goal. You've exceeded your goal. You moved up and you moved into a whole nother pasture. You're tearing down somebody else's field now. You're moving rocks out of somebody else's field. You're helping somebody else. And next thing you know, you're planting and then you're reaping because it comes in the season.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing at a time.
Yeah.
One thing at a time. I guess because we're at about 45 minutes, brother. Let's kind of, what are some things that I guess we can start getting into, like what I think someone asked me the other day, or yesterday actually. I was at a meeting and someone asked me, how come, I seem like a disciplined person, like what, and they kind of weren't, they're in a place where they're kind of in transition and they're kind of waving around in regards to how to become more disciplined and more intentional, which I said you get disciplined by becoming more intentional. Like, what are some of the things that you do in order to, to be more intentional? And you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think that's like a recap because I'm doing the same things that you're doing. I'm writing these things down. That's what I'm doing. I write this stuff down, and then after that, I stay focused and I do it. I got pads here. I got pads here. I'm writing this stuff down. I even got something up on my wall. I put a overall goal on my wall, and I put one over my bed too. I wrote it down, and I'm not talking about doing anything really special. I'm just talking about I just wrote it on a sheet of paper and I posted it up on the wall, period. Every time I walk into this room, I see the sign. It says, I will be richer and help others to be rich too, because that's one of my goals. See, I don't think I'm poor. I don't care. I ain't poor. And number one, the more wealth I obtain, the more I am going to give away. And I'm not waiting until I have $10 million. I'm doing it now, right now. And as I become richer, I will give more away. That's my intent. My intent. I'm a giver. So I want to, as far as that recap, that's where I would go with that, is that's what I'm doing. That's what I would give to the other people. I think that, in essence, it's for those of our viewers, as far as this, this goes, is what are the results of living intentionally?
What's the opportunity cost if you're not living intentionally? I think people fail to understand the opportunity cost of not living intentionally. What's the saying? If you keep doing what you're doing, you're gonna keep getting what you're getting. So if you are this, and once again, this is for people who are, if you're fine with your life, and what I mean if you're fine with, like, when you go home and you or when you're going home, you're not upset about going home. When you're going off to make your money, whatever your income is, you're not upset about making your money. If you are, you're just happy. You don't need escapism. You don't have to drink yourself or smoke yourself or whatever it is into unconsciousness, whatever it is to take you off of, just if you could just get up and you can live your life and you're just happy, then that's something to be said. Then this is definitely not for you. But if you are one of those people who are like this, there's something else out there. There's something going on. I don't know what it is, but I can feel it. I can feel that there's more to it for me. And there's more stuff, there's more things that God has in store for me. I just need to, then this is what this is for, essentially. You know what I mean? And I wanted to say something what you spoke about earlier, because my mentor used to say the same thing. And it had to do, he said, Mike, he said, I was never poor. He said, I was broke. he said I was broke. But I wasn't poor, because poor is a mindset. You got a poor mindset. You could be broke. Yeah, when broke, I don't got no money in the bank. I'll figure it out. I might not have a check today, but I just made it to I just wrote me a check. I might not have today, but I just wrote myself a check. You understand what I mean? But don't be poor. So I thought that just culminates, because here's 80-something years of wisdom telling me this on a rise, saying that it's fine to be broke, just don't be poor. Because once you become poor, then you feel like it starts to become helplessness. You know, like where can I move forward? So I thought that was interesting.
I like it. I like that. It's how old is your mentor?
He's Jim's got to be 84 now, 84, 85. I think he's about 84, 85 now, but he told me this when he probably was like 82.
So right there, just for y'all out there, this is the spectrum. I just want to point that out, the spectrum of what you're getting out of this community beacon, because Mike and I are right now in our 40s, right?
No, I'm not in my 40s. Don't give me 40.
I was balancing out your number and my number. Wow, you just gonna leave me out there by myself? I don't care, y'all. I am 42 and I look good. I feel good. You know what I'm talking about? This
you don't look a day over 25, brother. You don't look a day over 25.
I love it. I love it. Feed my ego. I love it. But I just wanted to say, as far as the spectrum of what we're talking about goes, you have a person that has lived 8 decades versus people that have lived 3 to 4 decades of life. And we're giving out the same type of information. I didn't know that that's what his mentor had said, but this is the same type of information. It's about mindset change and freedom. And at the end of the day, with this closeout that we're moving into, is the results of being intentional are life change. I mean, real easy put, life change. Mike lost 45 pounds by being intentional. That's life change. Life change. That's what happens. Listen, I'm not going to get into finances, but listen, in a short period of time of me just making the intentional movement to do what we're doing here right now, my net worth already shot up just by being intentional. I mean, shot up. I'm not going to go into finances. That's my biz right now, but it shot up.
But and here's the thing, brother. You intentional about finances, intentional about your health, intentional about the people that you hang around. Just waking up in the morning with an intent, like what it is, and what it is, and I want to just break down really quick, like how, Mike, how you be intentional, and just like I told a young man yesterday in regards to discipline, I said it's not tough. It's something that you either are or you're not gonna do. But one of the things that I think it will behoove people is to write these things down, and it just starts off being having an intentional morning. Because if you start off with an intentional morning turns into an intentional day, and an intentional day turns into an intentional week, an intentional week turns into an intentional month, year, decades, 131 years at this, at that point in time. But it starts with that initial change of what do we say? What was the first one? Was writing it down. It was writing it down and then just executing out, in spite of the fear that you have. So yeah, that's how I want to end it. I think it's some powerful stuff, man.
EFW, brother. Envision, focus, work. EFW. Right. Envision it, focus on it, work on it. Write this stuff down, y'all. Success is there for you. It's there for you. And this is, this is what the community beacon is. Yeah, man. That's what we're about.
Listen, I'm so excited that we get a chance to have that we have this platform. I'm glad that we're joining each other on this platform, because these are the type of conversations that we have all the time. Yeah. These are some conversations that we have all the time, and and then we see the movement of it. So you know, the brother comes to me and we're talking about these things, and then I'm seeing him growing within his life and his family. He's seeing me growing, because we weren't these same people 10 years ago.
No.
You know, it was a little over 10 years ago when we first met. We were not these same people. You know what I mean? Even a short while ago, I'm not saying we were terrible. We weren't terrible people. We were still good people, but we weren't these people. We slowly and we moved forward, and we became the people that we are now. And wait till you get a little load of what we look like in 20 years.
Yes, sir.
You understand what I mean? This is, you know, the Lord bless us to see the next 20 years if we continue down this path of becoming intent. And let me tell you all, people, I said I was going to stop, but I'm getting into it. Real life happens. The amount of things that have happened in the last 10 years to the both of us, not just myself to myself. I'm talking about to the both of us, me and Joel here. The amount of things that had happened in the last 10 years. I mean, we have babies born. We had people that are very close to us pass on. You know what I mean? We've had financial situations. We've had, you know, leaving jobs. We've had, I mean, the gamut of what life presents to you. But staying on top of it, being intentional about friendships and getting back around the right kind of people. I said, just being intentional about our lives and writing these things down and encouraging and supporting each other. To me, that's what Community Beacon is about. Is to because life is gonna happen. Like me and Joe could sit here and hopefully when you watch this, we can tell you like this is what you got to do. You understand? And these are the steps to be taken, because success leaves clues. I'm gonna tell you one thing for sure, and two things for certain, is life is gonna throw some challenges at you, regardless of the situation. So we're not saying that this is, you're taking this fork in the road to intent. It's going to be a smooth ride on. It's going to be that smooth ride. Oh no. I'm talking about, it's going to be fields, and it's going to be like Joe said, that rock. It's going to be that rocky field. And what we got to do is just got to put our head down and move the rocks, you know, but
let me break in on that just for a moment.
Yeah. Go ahead. Take off.
No, just for a moment. I know we're shutting it down, and we need to shut it down. We have to be more intentional with that too.
Yeah.
You know, for the time of everybody else. But what you're talking about, that's part of that whole rock parable. You know.
Yeah.
When you become intentional to move those rocks out of the way one at a time, you're going to be met with people, with circumstances. One day it's going to rain on your field.
Mm-hmm.
You may not feel like moving that rock underneath that rain. Maybe it's a thunderstorm. Maybe it's a flood. Maybe the flood pushes all the old rocks back into the field. Maybe it's a neighbor. Maybe it's a friend or a family member that comes up and says, "You're doing it all wrong. I know a better way." When you become intentional, you will also find out that there are other obstacles outside of your hands, outside of your grasp. And that's what Mike is eloquently speaking about. You know, the baby's born, the loved ones lost, the jobs lost, the dips in income, the loss of income, the loss of housing, the bottom of the barrel, and rising back up. Because no matter what happens, just move the rock out of the way. Always stay focused and do the work. Be intentional with it, because the results are success. It's in you, just like it's been in us. It was always there. It's up to us to deny the fear residency inside of our heart and inside of our mind. Because once you allow fear to reside, take up room inside your head, you need it for fear. It's always no vacancy, no vacancy, no vacancy, no vacancy, no vacancy. I ain't got room for fear to be inside of me. Mike don't have room for fear to be inside of him.
I think we lost Joe. And he was going off too. Listen, people, appreciate you all for checking us out. Definitely appreciate you all. We will continue every Friday at 6:30. So you catch us up next week. I think I put Joel's information. If not, I will put it in somewhere in the description box so you can contact Joel. I'll put my information in it as well. You could DM us.